get started. So if we could start off with your name, where you're from, and who you are in OCR.
My name is Matt B. Davis. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm a guy that makes a lot of content about OCR.
That's true. And you recently took a little bit of a break from media and everything. How was that little vacation that you took?
I want to say one of the smartest things I've ever done. The part people often talk about, I'm going to get off social for a week, but the part that was missing for me was a total removal of all communication, which I've never done. Like I've taken Facebook and Instagram off my phone before, and that does slow it down, and Discord off my phone, which slows down all the input and the checking every 2 seconds at every red light, which I probably just did, by the way, like with my kids, I probably just did that. Those things is that you can actually at least with an iPhone, you can create that I'm driving autoresponder into anything you want autoresponder.
Oh,
And it
okay.
amazingly took pressure off me. So when I checked my phone, which I was barely doing, and I'd see 4 or 5 texts, I know they all got that autoresponder. And so I didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Now, in life, you technically don't have to do anything, but if you're anything like me, you feel it. Mike just texted me. I need to get back to him. This is important. Or I just don't want to leave him hanging because he's my friend. You know what I mean? Or we just love the fucking adrenaline of contact.
Yeah.
And if you stay off Facebook for a couple days, then you go and you check notifications, but you don't add anything, you don't, comment on the comments, by 2 more days, you don't get any notifications. And I've noticed that many times because you've stopped sort of feeding it. So the same goes for texts. Yeah. When I had a thought to text Josh during those 4 days or 5 days, whatever it was, I didn't. I'm like, that can wait, or I'll email him and he'll just get to it whenever. And that, therefore, by the 3rd day, I wasn't getting a lot of texts. So it's awesome. And obviously, I've got to live, I've got to work, I've got to be on social, I've got to text people. So it's like, how do you find that balance? And I think, Stacy pointed this out, and I know you can relate to this, is we work all week. The weekend comes. Now we're really working. We're at the event. We're getting all the content. We want to get it up as quickly as possible. So then Monday rolls around again. So I'm in a position where I can probably take some Mondays off, and I don't. I think your situation's a little different, right? Because you work for somebody else. But Stacy's like, if you work all week, then go to Ragnar, then work all week, and then go to Tough Mudder, maybe the next Monday you take off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's doing that kind of thing, is finding ways to slow it down without this black and white thinking, which again, I know I always do, of let me get off the phone for a week, or I'm never doing this again, or all the, you know what I'm saying? It's finding that magical balance, which doesn't really exist. We all talk about it. It doesn't really exist.
No. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm jealous that you were able to do that. I despise Facebook. I think more than anything, I just get all these notifications from just crap of like pages that I've liked of this and that. And it just like, I just want to shut off all the notifications. And I just felt I was wishing people happy birthday because you get that notification too. And I would just go on Facebook to wish people happy birthday. People that I don't give a shit about, but like, it just felt compelled to do that. And then I took a step back and I'm like, why? Like, no one's going to miss my happy birthday unless it's a good friend and then I can text them, but like, no one's going to miss, someone that I went to school with in high school doesn't care that I'm wishing them happy birthday. Like, I don't know. It's better to take a break from that. I do love Instagram, but yeah, Facebook and all that gets to be a bit much, I think. And I think it also comes back to you valuing mental health too. I know we talked about this a while ago, but again, talk about how your like opinion on mental health has changed over the years.
It's everything, man. Mike, I got to tell you, it's everything. I feel like it's definitely getting like we're having this moment in culture where everyone talks about it in a big way, but I still feel like people don't quite maybe grasp, like we think, and I'll include myself, we think the shit we do is what matters, right?
Yeah.
The things we're getting done, the money we're making, blah, blah, blah. But none of that fucking matters if you could have all the money in the bank in the world, and if you're anxious or depressed or all the things emotionally, then what's the point?
Yeah.
So like sleep is super important to me. I will not I will not give that up. You know what I mean? Jack Bauer and people give me a hard time because like I don't work past like 6 p.m. It's because I know I'm a fucking wreck. Like I could do it, but A, I'm not as sharp, and then B, I end up regretting it. Once in a while, I'll hop on here at like 7 or 8, and then I'm like jacked up. I can't sleep, and it's just maybe it's as I've gotten older, I've gotten more sensitive. But to me, like it's absolutely as important as my physical health. Absolutely as important is how am I feeling mentally? Am I feeling stressed? If I'm screaming at my kids, something is wrong. I need to
Yeah.
change something. I need to like go for a walk or fucking go to a 12-step meeting or like, and before I wouldn't, I was just like everyone else or like most of us, like go, go, do, go, go,
Yep.
do.
Yeah, it's never too late to kind of realize that too. Like I think you should always be learning. So it's I've been aware of my mental health issues since like 8th grade, and it's just nice to see that because it wasn't always as accepted as it is now. I think things are getting better. More and more people are being out about it, and talking about their problems, and more people can relate and be like, oh yeah, me too. And I think that's huge, and it's going a long way. But it's uh it's tough, right? And I feel like we have to like look out for each other. Even when you took your little vacation, I had people reaching out to me like, "Can you check on Mappy Davis?" I'm like, I think he's fine, but yeah, I will just in case too, because you know, it's tough sometimes, and sometimes it kind of comes out of nowhere. I just call it's like my demons, and running helps with that, and other things help with that. But it's a lot of self care, like you said, sleeping and just knowing what works for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think just even the concept, like my wife saying, "Why don't you take a Monday off?" is like it's kind of like, well, duh, of course you would. Like to some people, that's not a struggle, but for those
Yeah.
of us that are perfectionists and workaholics, I mean, look at what I said right before we started recording. Assuming you're not going to play that bit, is like I just like killed myself for 20 minutes to get this post right, and it's like it probably could have just waited. Like I started doing it at the red light and then I got in the driveway and then I fixed it and then I came in. It's like if I just had
Yeah.
come in and sat down, it probably would have been okay. The OCR world would have kept spinning. The world would have kept spinning.
Yep.
And again, it's not all bad, Mike, right? Like, again,
Yeah.
I don't want to be black and white about it. Like working is bad or social media is
Yep.
bad because that's not the case.
Moderation.
Well, and also just being, I think
Yeah.
awareness, right,
Yeah. Yep.
is the biggest thing too, right? Actually being aware of it. Like, so for you, you've had this Sunday night commitment for, I don't know, is it 8 years now? How many years have you been doing it?
No, only since 2017. Sometimes it feels like eight
Oh
years,
my
but yeah,
God. You've only been doing it
yeah.
since then. I consider you the old guard.
Well, in terms of consistency, I am. There's no one really around other than you. There's no one around back then that's been consistently putting out content, since then.
Do you,
So yeah.
well, do you consider like I'll do it Monday, or is it you? It's like I've seen you doing it. You've edited it in the car. And listen, there's something to be said for making a commitment and sticking to it. It's very
Yeah.
valuable. But have you thought about? I could wait a day on this one. I could catch some Z's.
So I do, and it kills me every time. Like I even put out a post last Sunday because I told you, who we were supposed to have on as a guest, and just things didn't work out. I'm not blaming them. It's just things didn't work out. And so I just put out a post like, post will be out, podcast will be out tomorrow. And it's just like a everything is fine meme of like the fire, everything over. Like that's how I felt. Like, and no one cares. Like they'll get it on their feed sometime throughout the week. I don't even know if people know that it's a, Sunday night release schedule, but it matters to me. And I think that kind of consistency has helped me through 2020 for one. Weeks could fly by, but every week I'm like, podcast. And it feels good because as much as because I'm a behavioral therapist throughout the week, but it's that side hustle, which hustle has like a weird, thing with it, but it's nice to have that creative outlet and having a little bigger part in the sport that I love so much. So I push myself a little hard on it sometimes. Yeah. Um, in regards to mental health too, further on in your background, drinking, right? So there's a lot of people out there that I'm sure are in the same spot that you were in. When did you know that you had to stop drinking?
Oh man. I mean, it's hard to answer that question only because like so I got sober through 12 step through AA, and that's some people do and some people don't. So no judgment either way. But because my dad was sober a long time and I knew this thing existed, it was easy for me to get there. Like I'd even been to meetings before with him. Like I'd go to visit him in Boston and he went to meetings. So I'd go with him and just sit there and whatever, from the time I was like 10 or 12. But that seed being planted, as it were, made it a
Mhm.
lot easier so that when it was time for me to go, when I called my dad in LA at age 27 and I was like, I think I have this problem. I'm not sure. He did what I would tell someone today, like, oh, you definitely should stop, but just like, hey, go to some meetings, see what it's like. Like he like really gentle with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I went and I'm one of those people that was like right away got sober and stuck sober. A lot of people don't. A lot of people go, this isn't for me. This is fine for you people. Or, you know, it's too much. There's too much talk about God or people. I'm not as bad as these people or all the things. But it's kind of in the same way some people get hooked on that first OCR race. I was the same way. I was like,
Yeah.
yep, I'm going to stop. My life's probably going to get better. And then it's been, massive swings of up and down since because that's life. But I've still been sober 21 years.
Yeah. I've just been spending a lot of time thinking about that because I know there's a lot of addiction out there, and I think you've handled it very, very well. And I know you had a big anniversary of it. We sent you a mug and everything, but like that's exciting that to abstain from something for so long, I think is really commendable.
How hurt will Caitlin's feelings be if I told you that my children already broke that mug?
That's fine. We can always make another. She has that fancy cricket. She's making everything now. She made me a little decal for my car that has like
Does
the
she does
podcast
she
name and
does she
everything.
listen to these?
This will be a good test of that.
Okay, we'll see if she mentions it.
I'll let you know. Yeah,
Well,
definitely.
my kids, I joke and talk about it a lot, but they do break things. And
Yeah,
I don't remember who dropped it or who broke it or whatever, but it was like right after I got it. Like you had just resent me this new one. And I was like, I don't have the heart to tell them like that they just fucking
that's
broke it
fair.
again. But I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And exactly. So now you're living in Atlanta. The Atlanta podcast has been on a bit of a long hiatus, but what is it about Atlanta that's so great? Because I got to experience a little bit of that the 2 years that I went down for World's Toughest Mudder, and I really enjoyed it. It's like the city in the trees or something like that. It's
Something like
nice.
that.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's because we have a little bit of everything. I think maybe I was just kind of thinking out loud, like it's just home to me in a this weird way. Like Boston's home to me, but in this like it's like Boston's in my blood, right? I'm born there. I have to root for the Sox and the Patriots. Like I can't not. Like, and that
Yeah.
actually came to a physical test when the Falcons played the Patriots, and I was like, I don't know how I feel. And then when the Patriots were losing, I knew how I felt. I was like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
And I rooted for Brady in the Super Bowl. Did you?
I'm not too big of a football fan, but yeah, I like Brady.
So anyhow, but when I lived in LA for those like 8, 9 years, I just knew like this isn't home. Like I think I'm gonna retire or move back to the South. And then
Yeah.
coming back here and it being a completely different city the last 10, 15 years, the movie industry came here. We became this real metropolitan city and we'll never be Boston or Chicago or like San Francisco or a real vibrant downtown. That's just not our vibe. But we've got a lot of everything and cool stuff happens here. And I don't know. I just, we don't get snowed in for weeks at a time. I like that part.
Yeah, that's fair. It's funny because I as someone that likes to make fun of the South and all that once in a while, Southern hospitality was like a real thing. Like when I showed up there, everyone was just super nice. And not that there's not nice people in Northeast, but we're a little bit more rugged, I
Right.
think.
Right.
Uh, so I thought that was a big change of pace going down there, and just like I don't know, when you talk to people, it's like a different kind of vibe down there, which I appreciated.
Right. People, you could just like wave to your neighbor and doesn't really happen as
Yeah.
much on the subway in Boston when you're on the T. You're looking down, you're avoiding eye
Yes.
contact.
Someone peeing in the corner. Oh, that's more New York City, but yeah.
Now, I've never seen someone urinate on the T. I have to be honest. I've never seen that.
Yeah. T is a little bit more classy than I don't like New York City. Um, but also like how so it's almost like a different kind of positive addiction, but like podcasting, like that's been your big baby.
Right.
How did you get into that, and what has that done like in return for you?
Wow. I mean, it's changed my life. Podcasting has literally changed my life.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like the fact that I've been on like the essentially like the first wave, like I feel really like an attachment to it in like this cool way.
Yeah.
Which is like, yes, there were podcasts as early as like '08, but 10, 11, 12 is kind of the birth, kind of the same way
Definitely.
OCR is, right? Like, so all I knew that existed was This American Life and Mark Maron. And I think I like, I have a connection to him. And so that's why I listened to him. And
Yeah.
he wasn't Mark Maron yet. He was just this guy doing this show. Like I remember one of the times he visited me early on, he was doing comedy here and he wasn't a draw at all. And he had like a sticker like, oh, listen to this podcast. And I remember I didn't know how to get it from my computer to my phone. I literally didn't.
It used to be a lot harder too.
Right. And so I will never know what like what creative gene went to my head that said you should do a podcast about obstacle racing. But I did. I went up to that death race in June of 2012 and was like, I want to talk to these people. Like, they're amazing. This is really cool. So no idea it was going to be a business, no idea that podcasting would become what it is today. Even in the 5 years since you started, you've seen it grow.
Yes.
How many fold would you say? Like,
It's been huge. It's the awareness of it. Like before, if you said like, "Oh, listen to my podcast," like subscribe, like does that cost money? And like, oh,
right. Well,
you
now
still
it's
get some of that.
now it's almost embarrassing because you're like, oh, will you come on my podcast? Like, oh, you have a podcast? Big deal. Like, it's
Yeah,
great.
because everyone has it.
So does my kid. You know what I mean?
That's why I love that I have like the number of episodes in the like 220. I think this is 226. Like that means a lot to me. And also, real quick on a tangent, that's why it bothered me so much. I don't remember who it was on the Atlanta podcast, but they were saying how like, yeah, we create podcasts and we start at episode 100. I'm like, fuck those guys. They're cheating. They're cheating. I earned them.
That is totally cheating.
Yeah.
I've so it turns out that this is what I'm really passionate about and am good at, and other people value it as well. So you put those together and you've got a pretty good recipe. Now, having said that, we're doing this whole live coverage now, which we can talk about later. And that's really amazing. And I think making videos is fun. But yeah, the podcast is like the baby, and I feel like is always the flagship. But there are people who like join the Patreon because of the videos and not because of the podcast. And I would have never thought that. And I would have never thought that would happen.
Yeah, it's funny. I think my biggest regret in the sport, because I guess I didn't realize that your podcast predates me in OCR because by like a month or two. But like I started OCR in 2012, and I think my biggest regret is not getting into podcasts sooner, simply because there were so many. I mean, there were so many events back then that just aren't around anymore. And I would have loved to have just covered them in detail and have race videos of that, which no one watches, but so I have those memories. But I mean, Run for Your Lives, Electric Run, like so many really cool events that just no one knows about. Everyone remembers, Battle Frog because of the joke, but that was just one of many that were around back then. And we just don't have as much now. So I just wish that I had, audio memories of those, I guess.
But you do have the photos.
Yes, that's true. That's true too. Yeah. And so I guess you touched on a bit there, but with the podcast boom, like how exciting is it that not only is OCR becoming more recognized, but podcasts is being more recognized compared to 2012, where people didn't know either, right?
Yeah, again, it's like I've kind of grown with both. The sport's grown and I've grown, and podcasting has become a thing. But I gotta say, being in it this long, Mike, I know I can be real with you and just say that like I don't know how to say this without sounding just weird, right? But like I know I'm at the top of the game, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that's very different, right? From 2012, where I'm like, I remember the first time Spartan retweeted me. I'm not kidding. It was the biggest fucking deal. Jeff and I make these race videos, and the first time Spartan or Tough Mudder shared our videos, it was like, oh my God, we're going to get 10,000 views. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, the biggest deal in the fucking world. And now, you know, ORM is the go-to thing. And, you know, it doesn't mean that I have carte blanche with these races, because I don't. I have to earn their respect and continue to do a good job. But like, the doors open a little bit faster for me now. And that's the thing that people always talk about with the, if you listen to entrepreneurs or you listen to whatever, is like, you know, is like, they're paying for what's in your head. They're paying for what you know what I mean? Like, I'm not paying, like, Savage is not paying me and Bracken to get on the television, to get on the computer for an hour and a half. They're paying for this, right? Experience and know-how and knowledge. And so that just feels kind of cool. But I also know I have to stay super hungry. If I get lazy, then I'm in trouble. But you've heard me say to Josh, I wish there were more. Like, you know what I mean? Like, even the people that we really like that haven't stuck around, right? We love Heather. Heather comes and goes. You know what I mean? No disrespect to Heather, but you know what I mean? It was great. Woman-led show on the West Coast, very different than you and I both. All those races we never got to, right?
Exactly.
And
I looked up to her. Yeah.
Right.
Like, as a West Coast, like, oh, I'd love to do what she does over there and you do down there. Like, cool, like trifecta. Then, you know, kind of forgot about the middle of the country,
but I'm also like, I think I have that kind of crazy entrepreneur thing, or whatever you want to call it. That's like, this could go away any second. Like, what if this all goes away? And you know, people say, did you feel that way during COVID? It's like, I felt that way more at other times. You know what I mean? Like, there were times where I went months without advertisers, and I was like, is this it?
Is this the end? Yeah.
Right? Like, I think if you look, there was a peak, right? If you look at traffic of, like, literally, if you go to our analytics, right? Battle Frog goes out of business was like literal peak of traffic. And then it started going down. And at one point when I noticed that, I was like, well, oh shit, does that mean it's over? And Tough Mudder's about to go out of business, and then Joe buys it, and then COVID happens. It's like, there's always this thing. But I think I talk about this a lot. Whenever I see the new people, when you see that group of 12 people with their shirts and it's their first time, you're like, okay, we're fine. There's a lot of new people. It's not just me and you and, you know, Rob McCoy. You know what I mean? There's people that are that are constantly coming in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I was volunteering for a local race, Boulder Dash, which has been around since 2011, I think. And it's awesome seeing people tackle obstacles for the first time. Like, oh, I never thought I could do this. Like, yeah, you're one of us now. Like, you're crazy. Come back out. Like, we're excited to see you at more events, and I hope it continues to do well. And I do feel like it has peaked. I would love a second peak after, like, we put this COVID stuff behind us and people want to go back out there and want to have adventure. But in an alternate world where, like, OCR is just done, what do you see yourself doing? Like, what do you think? No, I'm just curious though. Like, what, because, like, this is your life, and you all get from, like, it's good for us, but, like, what happens?
I got no plan B, dude. I got no plan B. And that's been a constant, not a constant, but a consistent thought for me, is like branching out, right? Like, I think as a business owner, having multiple streams of income is kind of where it's at. And if OCR does go down, so at one point I thought, oh, I could teach people how to do social media, because businesses and brands are always looking for it. And I know how to do it because I built my company from scratch. And so I thought, oh, I'll go that angle. And then I've never done it. I thought maybe, or I'll try to be like a speaker and get paid to do that. And it's like, no. And then it's like, well, should I do more in CrossFit? Should I do more in running? And it's really hard. It's really hard. They're like, when I'm on the mic with Bracken and we can reference every race that we've ever been to. And, you know, literally when the women were on the rig today, I was like, shades of Battle Frog, women just waiting to do that final rig. And it's like, to know that about running, like, I can't do that like overnight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even trail running, which is like, not as it's the closest thing. It's like there's so many racers and so many things. Like whenever I watch, like if I watch Jamil's stuff and he talks about these people, it's like it's really hard, Mike, is the point.
Yeah.
And for me to start from zero and try to become that person is really fucking hard. It's why we always kind of scoff at new people doing our thing, right? They're like, oh, they're new, they're not going to be any good, right?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. And I see you doing that, and it does make sense. I know with like you've become very good, seemingly good friends with Arm Hammer, right?
Right.
And he is like the you of CrossFit, right?
Right.
And
But
so,
I can't, but dude, you notice how much news happens in that sport like every other day?
yes.
Like I used to have him on all the time and it was like, well, shit, there's news every day about CrossFit. I can't do this. And I barely know any of these guys.
Yeah.
You have to fucking live it,
crazy
dude.
over there.
You have to live it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know how he does it. It's nice that CrossFit has its stuff together. I'm hoping that we eventually get to there, but it's
Right. But I mean,
something
again,
like
even
more
something,
organized.
honestly, something as simple as like, you know, your girl Meg, right? She's like Rachel Water is for us, or, you know, some other people that have done really well regionally, but nobody really knows who they are outside of here. So that when I finally interview her at Savage, I'm like, oh, I've heard of you for years, right?
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, oh, Meg Julian, Noob Sanity. You know what I mean? Like it just, right. And it's like, you got to get up every day and live and breathe this stuff to want to do it. And
Exactly.
right.
And you try to be like an expert in what you know, and I want to be that of the Northeast. Like I saw Kelly Glenn, and I'm like, holy crap, I know her from Fit Challenge. She did really well. She's part of Noob Sanity as well. And yeah.
Well, I think you commented that. I think you're like, hey, they're both from Noob Sanity.
Yep. Yeah, there's an awesome. Have you ever gone there?
To Fit Challenge?
No, Noob Sanity.
No.
It is the best kept secret in the Northeast. I'm very worried it's going to go the way of Shale Hill, where like they don't really advertise much, but they have some of the best athletes and some of the best obstacles.
Are they geographically located where people can get to it?
Not really. It's upstate-ish New York.
I know, isn't that always the
yeah.
So we've got OCR King Compound, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Run by Cody and Chrissy and a whole crew out there, and they're awesome. And they seem to be doing okay. They put on private events for kids. They'll do coaching like one-on-one drop-ins. You know, they'll teach you obstacles.
Yeah.
But it's the middle of nowhere. So if you don't live out there, you can't get to it. But that's how it's built because it's in the middle of nowhere. So
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's tough. And in regards to like OCR already hitting its peak and just continuing to try to raise that awareness, how much do you like put pressure on yourself? Because I feel like part of it is up to us to kind of, you know, shout from the rooftops, hey, like this is a real sport, you know, just, you know, run OCR, like let's go, come on, like try this stuff out.
And speaking of, watching the sport grow, and I don't know if this is something you and I have talked about like on or off record, but the same way that I worshiped being tweeted by Spartan, I worshiped Runner's World and I worshiped any like mainstream media. So if they were going to call me to be quoted, I was like, oh my God. And most of the time, journalists, air quotes, are just somebody given an assignment, right? And they're paid whatever they're paid. And they say, go do this, zero passion.
Yeah.
It's a freaking gig to them, right?
Yeah.
So they'll quote me and then they'll write that article and they're good on their way. And it makes me, I'd say it's more the inverse. When they get it wrong, I get more mad, right? So if they put an article up, like I remember an article that went up and it was like the top 5 races and like 3 of them were already out of business. You know what I mean? And I wrote the lady and was like, these races are out of business. And she was like, what? I don't care. I'm writing a top 5 vacation spots to do next month. So I wish they cared more. And, all we can do is do what we do. And it's like, clearly I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but I said to Brackett on the show today, this sport is awesome. Where else are you going to see that? Right. Someone who was in 5th all day and boom, one obstacle later, they're in the lead. Right.
Yeah.
Now that last obstacle did probably take too long, but even a struggle on the where did she struggle first? Anchors Away, maybe.
There was a wall even.
Oh, well, the wall, right? That was one thing, but later on it was Anchors Away, or just even even like Kempson, Woodsy getting seconds on Kempson on the low crawl. What do they call that? What do they call their version? Inversion therapy.
That's the low rig.
low rig, I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
even that stuff is like, man, this sport is exciting. How can we not get this thing on TV and make it work? Don't you feel that frustration?
Yes, it's very very frustrating because I remember I think it might have been Bracken saying that with a road race you can line people up like what's your PR, what's your PR, what's your PR, and you can kind of like okay that's the race. You don't even have to see it. There's no I don't think there's the excitement there, but yet it's been here for so long and so many people are aware of it that it's just grown to be this big sport like the Boston Marathon, which is the biggest marathon in the world. I'm going to continue to say that, and it's Caitlin's yelling from the other room. No, it's not. New York City is, but it it's just a marathon, which is still exciting. It has like the best athletes in the world, but there's no like you have a pretty good idea of who's going to win. There's no variables to make the
Yeah,
sport
and
more
that's and
exciting.
I've had like Olympians on and asked them that. Like, you
Yeah,
know, your best deadlift is right now good for fifth in the world, or your best PR on a marathon. So like, and they're just like, well, I'm gonna see if I can have my best day, and they're gonna see if they have their best day, right? And
yeah,
so that can happen. You can have a good or bad day, but no, you're right. In our sport,
yeah,
nothing's guaranteed ever, ever.
yeah. Especially with like just weather. I mean, uh, again, going back to Ryan Kempson, he's one of the best athletes in the world right now, which is really exciting. But Seattle took him back in the day. Seattle, he was too cold, and like that basically took him out. And he's from the Northeast. You wouldn't think that would have affected him, but things people have their days, and it's just to a higher degree, I think, in our sport.
Right.
Yeah, and it just podcasting in general. You have like a great team rallying behind you. You have Patreon where you release that your middle name is. I'm gonna edit that out.
Oh my god! Oh my god! I can't believe you just did that.
I just wanted to see your facial reaction.
Did you know ahead of time?
I did, yeah.
I can't remember who I told. Some close friends have found out.
So you didn't tell me, but what you did do
Oh yeah, I
a
posted
couple
it a
of
long
years
time
ago,
ago. Right.
you not only that, but you posted it, but you like scratched it out, but I could see the last letter.
And you figured it
And
out?
so and yeah, figured it out. And it's like it popped up with some like, did you mean like this name? It's
I
really
gotta say
popular in like this demographic.
but I gotta say the big reveal was so underwhelming when we did it. It was like the world's just gonna keep spinning. No one cares, Matt.
It was, but you didn't promise them that like it'd be an exciting middle name, right?
No, I just felt weird. Like I made such a big deal.
In fairness, it was just funny because everyone's like, just say your middle name already. Say your middle. And I'm just like waiting, and you're like, that's it. They're like, are you sure? Are you sure that's it? But my question is like, how do you feel? Because I was worried that once you release it into Patreon land, that they would just everywhere. But I feel like it's been kind of kept under wraps. So I like the mystery behind it. Yeah,
I hope so. I mean, there's probably some good friends that are like, hey, I found out. I'm going to tell you. But at the end of the day, who really cares? It's just been fun. It's just like fun.
And I remember Caitlin saying like, what's the big deal? Like just the fact that you're big in the sport and you've had this secret, whether it's like a big secret or a little secret, like you've had this public secret that everyone's been dying to know. It's exciting. How do you not get caught up in that,
Right.
When did you realize that you needed to kind of differentiate yourself with the B? Seriously though, like
it's weird, dude. I think if you look up like names in like the 70s, like Matthew's like third or fourth, right? Like John, Jim, Mike, Mark, Matt, or Matthew, right? All the biblical names.
Biblical names, yeah.
So and then the most common last names in the world, like there's like William, Smith, Davis, Matt Davis. There's a million Matt Davises. Okay. If I go to a hotel, okay, it happens to this day, Mike. I go to a hotel and they go, hey, what's your number? What's your rewards number? I go, I don't remember. They go, what's your last name? I go, you're not going to be able to find it that way. So I tell them my last name. They go, what your first name? I give my first name. They go, middle initial. I give my middle initial. They're like, okay, what state are you in? Georgia. I have 40 Matt B. Davises in Georgia. You know what I mean? It's like, wow. It's or 50 or 1,000 or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So like, I've just always been Mappy Davis. Like I think if you go all the way back to high school, like my friends called me that. And so when I started my social media accounts, that's just what I put, right? And who knew it would, like, I think that's the lesson again. Like if I talk to people about, because I have gotten to talk a couple times about social media and growing a brand and that kind of stuff. And it's like, you don't know. Like, I was so, Mike, embarrassed, and I know you can relate to this, to ask for money the first few times on Patreon, right? Like,
Yes. Yep.
really embarrassed. And so I made a joke like, hey, my kids eat a lot of cereal, give me some money. And it's like, that's become a thing. And
Yep.
people still, like, to this day, and probably forever, will make that joke. They'll send me
Yeah.
something and say, hey, put this in the cereal fund. And so it's like, I couldn't have predicted that, Mike, and I couldn't have predicted
Yeah.
that putting a middle initial on all my social media platforms would become like my brand. So, right?
Yep. And going back to asking for money, this is no seriously, like this is something that I've been struggling with since the beginning, and Patreon is included in this. But like knowing your own worth as an
Right.
entrepreneur, you have to be very good. And I remember you helped me on very early on in getting sponsors and saying like this is how you ask for a sponsorship deal. Don't do this. Like it's tiered. Like do this. If not, try this, and then fall back on this. You're just really good at that. Like how did you determine your worth? How do you do that?
Oh, dude, I think that's like the
Oh,
dilemma of every entrepreneur, whether you're you do what we do and you're trying to sell ad space, or you're a plumber or an electrician or a doctor. Like, here's my hourly rate. Some
yeah.
people are really good at it and never struggle. If you talk about the South, you can meet the biggest fucking redneck in the world, right? And he is killing it, right? And you're like, how am I making less money than this fucking guy, right? He's like, gerp, 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 gerp. But he knows that he charges, $300 an hour to paint your house or whatever the fuck it is, right? I mean, I'm being
Right.
serious. Like, I've met a
Yeah.
lot of those guys. Like, my friend, okay, his name's CR. CR. He's like wads of cash. He's like, yeah, I bought a couple of houses here in the West End for 7,000. I flipped them for 200. You know what I mean? It's like, anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I've always struggled with that, and I think most of us do what I do, which is like, you just kind of pick a number and then you start getting work. So then you slowly raise it, and then
Yeah.
you just kind of play with that. And again, like, some people are awesome at that, and I've struggled as much as anyone with figuring that out. I can tell you now, I charge more for advertising than I did when
Yeah.
I started talking to you.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And it's one of those things that it's like, oh, I could do it for free. It's exposure, but like that only works for so long, and then you have to figure out like how much bigger are you? And like, what do you base it on? Do you base it on like social media following? Because our social media following isn't great, but like we do pretty okay. And
Right.
it's just weird to like prove to people like, yes, we are doing good. Like you do want us at your event so we can talk about this and we can cover this and bring more attention to that. And
Right. Well,
yeah.
I think also, just again, talking about the skills that I have, like, talking is one of them. So if I
Yeah.
can talk to you about why you should advertise, then I could be good at that. Like, there's lots of things I'm not good at. Like, if you saw me try to, like, change out a doorknob in this house, it's embarrassing, right? Like, that should go pretty quickly for most men my age.
Yeah. And I think a big differentiation between the two of us is like extrovert and introvert too. And you're just so calm, like you're just so used to like going out and talking to people. And podcasting, selfishly, one of the reasons why I started podcasting is to get out of my comfort zone and to try to get to know more of the community. But it's hard, and I am exhausted going to like OCRWC. I even have spots where I go out and do interviews, and then I retreat to this little area, have like some me time, and then I go back out, and it's a lot. It's a lot. Extroverts can deal with that better, and I struggle with that.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, again, like, there's part of it that's like, you know, people can tell you that there's part of it that actually, like, masks the insecurity, because you sort
Mm-hmm.
of just, like, you just sort of get out in front of it and, like, talking. So you're really like, you don't have to, but then, yeah, for whatever reason, I just feed off of it. And, like, it's
Yeah.
why I think never wanting to get up in the morning on race day, and then you get there and, like, you start seeing everybody and you just like, woohoo.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a much more extroverted with races and stuff than other places. It's nice to see my people.
But, like, you
Uh,
don't, but, like, you would never, like, do you, like, are you, like, friendly with the barista? Do you, like, try to strike up that conversation?
no. And it's not like I don't have anything against them. Like I have been that person. Like I
Hey,
value
how's your day? Hey,
everybody,
how's your day
but
going?
nope, nope. I keep to myself. I even with like like if someone's having a party, if I don't get there early before like everyone gets there, I probably won't go. Like it's just too many people and like getting to know everybody, and I suck with names, which is really bad for this.
Hang on a second. Who is it?
Ooh, they're knocking.
Sure. First of all, he apologized. He knocked and apologized.
Nice.
Miracle. Okay, you ready, buddy? 289-881. What are you logging into? I know, but why are you logging into iCloud?
Should have asked that first.
Because why? He wants to find his old contacts. I don't think you have any contacts, but okay. Go ahead. I'm good. You can edit that part out or not. I don't care.
That's fine. I forgot what we were talking about. I was just very impressed that he knocked.
Being and saying excuse me.
Yeah.
Well, but when you have a lock on the door, they have to. If you don't lock it, then they come in.
Control your environment. Very good.
Being introvert. Well, listen, I tell anybody if I'm gonna have a call on the weekend, I'm like, this could go either way. It used to be a lot worse when they were younger. It was like I could be on for 2 minutes and it's gonna end in tears. But now it's usually pretty good.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Moving on from that, though, I wanted to hear a big change that you had with your podcast. You changed the theme song from Running Bear. People may not remember that. Go into like why you changed that, because I was surprised. I didn't really realize that either.
Oh, well, I had this woman on and we were talking about like mascots and indigenous people, and then I went to edit that show and I put the song on, and it was like it's kind of like it kind of struck me like weird. Like that's how sort of blind I was. And I don't know if we want to talk about this because I know this could go like a lot of places about where we are as a culture. But I'm gonna say that as we continue, it's like if you look at it, so I'm a big fan of the rewatchables. I don't know if you've listened to that at all.
I've heard you talk about it a lot though.
So they go back and watch movies, right? Some are awesome, like award winning, and some are just really rewatchable, right? Like Crimson Tide. Okay. Didn't win any awards. Amazing rewatchable movie, right? And some are classics like Top Gun or Goonies or The Godfather or whatever. But the point is they do categories, right? And one of the categories is what's aged the best or what's aged the worst. And almost always what's aged the worst is jokes that don't fly now, right?
Yeah.
And they're usually racist, sexist, whatever. And while I'm a guy who thinks it's okay to make jokes, there are things now that we don't do that we used to do. And again, like being blind to it. You know what I mean? Like there's a derogatory word for Japanese people that people used on the regular all the time, right? Or German people because we were at war with them, right? They just, called them Krauts or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just like how we talked. So for me not to think for a second that might offend anybody. And then that song was like, has this like, basic imitation of an indigenous person. And it's not, it's some white guy. And I was like, I think I'm going to change it. Now, what that did get me was a friendship with this new guy who I happen to become friends with this guy through Patreon. Patreon started like this group of Patreon members, like about the same amount of people, like get together and learn from each other. What works, what doesn't work. And it was fun, but he's this badass musician. And I was like, could you write me a song? And he did. And now I have a new, it's really long, but I only play the cool, like 30 seconds of it. So that's why I changed it.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And again, it goes back to kind of always being open to learning, because the 90-year-old guy that's on his porch yelling about Japs and all that, like, you just some people just stop learning, and it's tough,
First, right. And I think that's the difference, right? Is like being, so for example, you and I can't think of a better example, but I'm sorry. My mother says things and I'm like, Mom, I think that's racist. And she's like, no, it's not, because of these 7 reasons. And I'm like, okay, Mom, you know what I mean? Like, let's right.
Times
like, okay,
changed,
like okay, boomer, You know what
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah. It's my grandmother's the same way. She's very very Irish, and Irish kind of not to attack the Irish, but some of them are a little intolerant of other people, and it's frustrating because like there was a time, especially in Boston, like no blacks, no Irish, like
Right.
you were discriminated against too. Why would you continue like
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it's frustrating sometimes.
Yeah. Boston's got some tension in the past.
Yes. Oh yeah, especially between the Irish and the Italians. But another somewhat deep question that if something were to happen to you, like plane crash, this, that, have you thought like what would happen to ORM?
I love these
Like,
questions.
I don't know when I just over time.
Mike, I can say no one has asked me these questions. I've been interviewed a lot, and if nobody asks me these questions, I know they're good questions, because when people say that to me, I know it means a lot. So, I did a will several years ago that said my staffing company would go to my wife. I don't know if you heard. I used to have a staffing company.
I was gonna have a joke about that later.
another like running joke that like who could imagine that would be such a stupid thing. And since then I don't. I have told my wife like, hey, here, like she just knows my passwords. So it's like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like if you ever needed to get in, you could. But yeah, I should redo my will, but yeah, if God forbid something happens, it's I don't know. Can I will it to you?
So
and you give my wife a cut of the profits?
Right. And I was thinking about like his kids are too young. Like Josh is very much in line with a lot of things that you think, even though you think he has horrible sports takes. And like I'm very jealous of your success, like not in a negative way, but like there's all these other people that want to be you, I would say. And it kind of makes me think of the part of The Departed, going back to movies. Like, do I think it could be you? Yeah, it could probably be you, but I don't want to be you. Like the whole like I don't want to take it from you, but like I just wondered like what would happen to the biggest media platform for obstacle course racing if like something were to happen to one person, you know?
Right. I think, yeah, it's not, I should have a better backup plan. I would like to teach my kids like how to do this stuff. Yeah. And I think when Emma's a little bit older, she can actually help me because she's good at social. Right now, she kind of doesn't want to, but the few times I've asked her for help, she's great at it. Even Stacy, when we went to Bermuda that time, I was like, do the stories, and she did great. You know what I mean? It's good to have a creative person that isn't you, that adds their own style to it. You know what I mean? It's like, and as a recovering control freak, which I've talked about, I was a horrible control freak with the staffing company. I remember the first time that I did Worlds and JD was the social guy, and I went back and watched it, and I was like, oh, he did things I didn't even think of. And that's like what you want, right? So yeah, as the boys get older, maybe they'll want to do it, and maybe they won't. But yeah, there's no real plan B, Mike. That's what we've learned about this thing. I'm not a planner for the future.
Yeah, not that I have like a hit on you or anything, but no, just one of those things that like I wonder. But another thing, here's an easy question. What would you say is the meaning of life? It started off as a joke, but I think everyone has guests
now. Do you do this with all your guests now?
No. I'm like, let's ask, going deep with Matt BD. Yeah. But like, what would you over your life experience? Like, what would you say?
So I lost my dad recently, and I think that gets you thinking about it, right? Especially when you're, there's this guy, Scott Bennett, shout out, who's, I don't know how old he is. I think mid to late 60s. And he's been racing since I've been racing. So he's always been, and we go back and forth. He's like nemesis on the circuit. We like, I'll win, he wins, I'll win, he wins kind of thing.
Is he one of the Gray Berets?
So yeah, he is one of the Gray Berets. Okay. And he's just a sweetheart. And every time I see him, we have a real, like, there's a lot of people you just kind of wave and see, but he's like a nice tight hug. Like, dude, I'm so glad you're in my life. You're an awesome dude, kind of a dude. And I said to him, I said, you wake up at 49 and go, well, there's no denying it. I am closer to the end than I am to the beginning. Like that's a fact, right? 49 times 2 is 98, right? So if I live to be 98, right? And I'm probably not, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm way on the downhill slide. So you think about it when you get to my age period, losing my dad, I think about it like even more, kids are born, lose a parent, all those things make you think about, right? And I would say that, it's got to be about, it's hard not to give a cliche answer, but it's got to be about taking it a day at a time and taking in the now, right? Because that's all there is, right? That is all there is. Like I try to stay in the present, you know what I mean, and not freak out. And it's easy to freak out. We're, real talk, we're trying to get a house now. And so we just sent our taxes off to this guy and we're kind of like dying, right? Like, how much house can we afford? Because that's going to be everything. And it's like, I think I used to do so worse with that. Like if the guy didn't call me within an hour, I'd be up his ass. Well, like, what do you tell me the answer? So it's like, just trying to like stay. I think it's all about staying in the present, Mike. Like that's all you can do.
Yeah. I like that answer. My grandfather always used to say, like, I think it was him, that inside every like older person is a younger person wondering what the fuck happened. Like, right? It's just because things don't really change, really. Like, you're still the same person, you learn, you grow, but just the world keeps whirling, and it's just, yeah.
Well, I can say that when I had Emma, I knew a lot of guys that already had kids, or just met a lot of guys that whatever, like, and a lot of guys that I talked to, whether it was the guy that worked on my car, because you tell everybody, right? Like you literally like go through Dunkin' drive-through, you'll tell the lady, hey, we're having a kid. Like you're just so excited. Yeah. And several men said to me, I wish I spent more time enjoying it, but I was too busy. I heard these exact phrases. I was too busy making money. I was too busy building my company. Like I heard, and I thought, okay, that's definitely not going to be me. Like that was a conscious thought. I'm not going to do that. And have I been perfect at it? Of course not. But again, that magical word balance about like they basically were saying it's one or the other. You're either going to go be a success or you're going to be a good dad. And I was like, no, I think I can figure out a way to do both. And yeah, it sucks to be gone for weekends and leave my wife alone with these 3 kids. It sucks. And I think I do a pretty good job of, I think that another thing I always heard is like, well, when you are home, again, be present. It's not about necessarily how many minutes you spend per day, but like when you're going to be home. So don't be, home on the phone every night. I'm doing this with you and I had some work this morning, but most of the time, like if I can give them all of me, especially when they're little, just give them like all of you. So that's kind of the way, not be like doing this, right? When you're watching your 2-year-old, like be with the 2-year-old.
Yeah. I like that answer. I've meaning of life and all those like philosophical questions have always been like very big for me. And actually one of my majors in college was philosophy. And I studied like, what is the meaning of life from all these different, like, is it suffering according to Schopenhauer and this and that? And it's super interesting to me. I think you can learn a lot of people from like what they've learned in their lives. But yeah, I like that. I like that answer.
Speaking of suffering, I can tell you when I was super depressed, I listened to the most depressing yet uplifting book. Do you know what I'm talking about? Did we talk about this?
Oh yeah, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Yeah.
I got it right over in my philosophy section. Yeah.
Don't ask me why. I mean, it was just my friend Clayton and I listened to it together, like while we were driving. And it's like, I don't know. It's like life is like suffering and beautiful at the same time.
Yeah. I think one of the quotes is like what's more, the joy of the wolf eating the sheep or the suffering of the sheep? And just like how like everything's just give and take, and like you can't really have one without the other. And yeah, it's an interesting conversation. Yeah.
And that they're in line for their tiny ration of soup. And if you got like the bottom of the soup, it was like it had more meat in it. It was more like substance to it. And they said, they joked like, when we're back home, we can joke about this. When we're at a real restaurant, we can like joke about, now, why is this fucking standing out to me? I have no idea, but like, we'll be able to joke about who gets the big piece of bread when we're back in the world and we're eating like regular people.
Yeah. It's a crazy, sometimes in my lowest points, I go to weird things too. Chester from Linkin Park, like when he killed himself and stuff, like you just watch old videos and stuff. Like I think it's kind of good to kind of stay in touch with that and kind of feel grounded. Yeah, fun stuff. Moving on, what advice would you offer someone who's a little older in life thinking about getting into running? Because I know that you yourself didn't get into running until you were older.
You broke up there.
Oh, my bad. So what advice would you give to someone that's a little bit older who thinks like, oh, it's too late for me to get into running, but I know that you didn't get into running until you started getting older too, right?
You keep breaking up. What would you give advice to someone getting older?
Damn it.
Do I need it?
Test. Okay. If someone that's getting older, he wants to get into running, because I know you didn't get into running until you were older.
Yeah, age 40.
Yeah.
Is when I started. Well, 39, fall of my 39th year, October 2011. This is David Watson. That's a good Dave Watson impression, right?
Getting better.
Have you ever interviewed David Watson?
I've actually never met the man.
Oh, okay.
They don't really come up to our neck of the woods we don't have any big races here, except for Killington, but yeah.
You got to interview Dave Watson.
I do.
Well, it's kind of like you're either going to like it or you're not. You know what I mean? Like Stacy had to remind me early on that I used to look at people running and say, why? Like, why would you do that? It's stupid.
Yeah.
And then for me, the heavens opened up. And I think for me, it was a big mental health piece, right? The endorphins, the alone time, all of it.
Yeah.
But I can tell you it's never too late. That's for sure. And again, when I see older guys at races, it makes me, because I sometimes doubt myself. And then you'll see a guy out there, Spartan just showed that guy who's done like 80 trifectas or something, or he's 80 years old. And you're like, oh, well, or you feel old. Like I see all these young shirtless dudes and I feel old. And then I'll watch, and then I'll like see somebody like who's 80 years old. And I'm like, oh, I've got a whole life to live. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I barely, yes, I'm closer to the end than the beginning, but like the next 30 years, who knows what it's going to be? Right? Who knows? How old are you? True. How old are you, Mike?
I'm turning 30 this year. So
you're turning 30? Did you start podcasting when you were 20?
You're a baby, Mike. College.
You're a baby.
Yep. But even still, like I view, and that's the thing, like mentally, I look at all these athletes and just like assume they're all older than me. And then like I come to realize like Rhea Coble is my age. And like all these people, I'm pretty sure about that one, but like, it's weird that they're all my age now, like all these crazy athletes, and kind of wonder like, oh, if I put all the effort into podcasting, if I put it into training, would I have been better? But I'm just going back to like what you said to Bracken about not everyone wants to get faster. I just want to be fast enough to outrun my demons. That's all,
I love it.
Yeah.
But didn't you agree with me though? That's not everybody's goal.
I do agree. And I know that he said like, oh, like that's just the catch-all. Like everyone just wants to, get better or push themselves harder. And
it was literally the first thought I had when I heard them say that, when they said, yeah, everybody wants the same thing, get to the finish faster. And I was like, nope, I'm training for a 50K. I want to just cover 32 miles. That's what I want to do.
I just like finishing. Finish lines, not finish times. But speaking of them, did you hear their episode with Nick Riker?
No, I heard it's an emotional journey though.
It is. And I don't know. I really like Nick Riker, and I'm devastated for him. So, not that he's not going to make a comeback, but just in the short term, like this is rough for him.
All right, I need to go listen to that though. I like old Nick Riker.
Yeah. What's something that you could tell your past self? So if you could kind of rewind to any younger Mappy Davis, what's something that you would tell him?
Don't sweat the small stuff, and it's all small stuff. It's all small stuff.
Yeah.
The amount of anxiety I caused myself, specifically, I think about that staffing company, but it was really life in general. Actually, I was volunteering. I was in this volunteer organization for a long time, this men's organization. I haven't talked about it a lot, but it was a big part of my life. And I learned a lot from it. I learned a lot about leadership, and basically had these like older brothers mentor me in a way that I kind of didn't have. And I was on the phone with this guy. We were getting ready to do this event, and he was like, I was saying, oh, this guy, he's not doing anything he's supposed to, and he's making me want to pull my hair out. And he goes, Matt, are you the kind of guy that something always makes you want to pull your hair out? And I was like, never dawned on me. And it was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's me
Yeah.
1,000%. Right. So just stressing. And then just like, it's like, I feel bad. I wasted time and mental energy and literally lost sleep, but also like the poor people who worked for me, who for the most part were good people. And I like was an asshole to them. Like nobody likes the asshole boss. And I was an asshole boss. And I'm like embarrassed about it. I mean, I need to let it go and not beat myself up forever. But I mean, I don't know if you've ever had that feeling where you're just a jerk to somebody and like, oh, I wish I wasn't a jerk to that person.
To Caitlin, mostly. Yeah. She's like the nicest person ever. And I just the amount of stress I put on myself, it just like overboils. And I'm just like, and I'm like, I'm sorry. Like it's yeah, I sweat all the small stuff. So that's something,
Well,
some
stop
advice
doing
I
it,
could
Mike.
take.
Stop sweating the small stuff. It's all small stuff. Like, but
Yeah.
again, I'm someone who just like caused myself all this anxiety over a stupid post. You know what I mean? A stupid fucking post that like, who cares if it was 5 minutes later? And I like totally sweated it. So yeah, Matt, past self and future self, stop messing with small stuff.
Yeah. So now Ode to Laz is coming up. What are your thoughts going into that?
Ooh, great topic. Hope you're listening,
Yeah.
Josh Chase. Mike Stefano.
Yes.
I'm not good at obstacles. I don't train for obstacles. I like to run. I like to run at media lap pace, which means we go out there and have a good time. Like basically Tough Mudder pace, but I do all races like that. Like Tough Mudder's like, let's just go for a lap, right? It's just fun doing the obstacles with friends. So that's how I treat pretty much everything. Savage, Spartan, whatever. I have very few A races where I'm like, I am going to do well. If I'm going to have an A race that I really kill myself on, it's usually like a local 5 or 10K. Like, because what else is the point, right? You're not going to run a 5K for fun, right? You're going to go your hardest, right? Or when I was trying to break 2 at the half, whatever. Okay. And over the last 3 or 4 years, I've gotten injured and gone to PT, gone to physical therapy and done these exercises and gotten better and then go back to normal and blah, 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 blah. But I've never done any strength training, right? The occasional pull-up, the occasional body weight workout as I go for a run. I think we talked about this on the show today. No, I talked about this.
Yeah.
Did I talk about this today?
Sounds familiar, but yeah.
The point is, I am now doing strength training. My PT has become she's already my running coach. Now she's my strength coach. So she has me doing a lot of exercises with a lot of my legs. And I am so used to something hurting or being sore that I thought it meant something was broken, that when I went for a run and I was like, dude, my butt really hurts. She's like, yeah, that's because you're working those muscles. So I've literally only recognized that as an injury. And I am stronger than I've ever been. And I've never been a strong runner. I've been like, I can go a long time, but it feels awesome. Like
good.
My coach was like, how can you tell? And I was like, I don't know. I think the hills feel faster or stronger. She goes, that's usually where I can tell. I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't, because I'm a horrible runner. I think about like what I'm not engaging, and I feel like I'm not engaging anything. Like I'm moving my, I just move like from my hip to my knee, just my thighs. I just move my thighs, then my feet just do the rest.
That's what I do, and that's what cost me injury after 4 years of running. You know, when I started in 2012, by 2016, I started having issues because it's like, oh, like your glute muscles don't fire, and you're just killing your quads, right?
Yeah, my physical therapist said that.
Or your IT, right?
Yeah. My physical therapist said that my hamstrings are like steel cables. I'm like, oh, right on. And she's like, that's not good.
Right. So now, since these other things are firing, and she actually has me like lifting weight, not a lot, mind you, but you know what it is for me is like, it's dude, it's form and technique, the most basic things in the world I can't do. And it's like, I get self-conscious about it. Like she had me literally, Mike, little visual for your audio listeners, standing on a box and stepping back down. But this 4-step process where you go up on your forefoot, now all the way up, now back down, now all the way down, but do your arms at the same time. Can't do it, like without falling over. And like, that's how you run. You engage your core. You do all these, and she does it. She looks like a fucking gazelle because she's been running for 30 years and she's been doing it for 30 years and she looks amazing. And it looks like something easy, dude. Have you ever done what do you call them? What do you call it when you like do this for a kettlebell and just go up and down?
I don't know. You're picking up stuff. Deadlift? I'm
Is that
not
a
a lift. I
deadlift?
don't lift either. I don't know.
So again, super simple concept, right? But I
Yeah.
completely round my back, completely, which
Yeah.
doesn't work it. You're only supposed to feel it in your hammies. And like the amount of minutes I've spent like focusing, just trying to do these things, it's unbelievable. So,
Yeah.
but I recommend it because it will make you a better runner, Mike.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're listening to this and you're like laughing and calling me an idiot, that's fine. I'm okay with it. I'm just telling you that's how basic the stuff is, that if you don't do it your whole life and then you have to do it, it's work. But working on those things has made me a stronger runner.
Yeah. Which means you're gonna beat Josh.
Oh, so back to what the last. I feel stronger than ever.
Mhm.
The only anxiety, Mike, seriously, the real fear I have, honestly, is bathroom, right? Like
Okay.
if I have some stomach outbreak, you don't have a lot of time. And that's the only thing I think that can slow me down. Like I can eat on the run. I'm going to have my crew like go through a whole plan of how we're going to do it. And I know plans go out the window, but we're going to like 2 sets of water bottles, right? We're never going to have to refill something while I'm there. You'll always have them ready. Stuff like that. I gotta make a note. Buy water bottles. But like, what if I get the you know what's and I'm in the bathroom for 7 minutes and the time goes off? Like that's my biggest concern, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's just the fear of the unknown thing.
I mean, I feel like someone that could give you comfort in that is Rhea Coble. She's not afraid to shit her pants.
Well, I don't think I will be either if I have to, but I won't have a wetsuit on. But I'm not worried about beating Josh. I'm worried about staying to like, seriously, I would like to win. I would like to like be the last person standing, and just saying that out loud really terrifies me. But it's like, why not me? Why not? It's essentially running really slow for a day.
Yeah. Good. I'm excited to go to this. And you said like we had to pick people. I'm with you. Caitlin's going to be with Josh. I don't remember if I told her, but
you haven't told me. So can we talk about that? Because it's to make clear to people, it's not like World's Toughest where you can just have 5 people in a pit. We're both coming in at the exact same time and we only have 6 or 7 minutes, like whatever it is.
Yes.
So if I get you, fantastic. I would love to have you. Now, if one of us goes out, probably him, then you guys can all help me.
That sounds good. But I'm super excited for that. It's another adventure in 2021. I need some more of those because every event in Massachusetts keeps getting canceled or postponed. So
even though Caitlin is probably the more experienced pit person, right?
So I pitted in World's Toughest Mudder in Vegas for the last year. But don't ask how that went because that did not go well.
Who did you pit for?
My buddy Alex Youngworth, who only got like 35
I remember
miles.
that podcast. I remember he stayed in. You tried to get him to go back out, but he wouldn't go back out.
He was like, it's so cold. And it's funny because, you know, I learned so much. I think before anyone should run World's Toughest Mudder, they should pit. So they don't have that like fear of missing out. Like what's going on in the pit? You get that experience, you know what's there. So that when you run World's Toughest Mudder, you do your thing, you get the hell out there. But
listen, I'm telling you, we've done that. ORM, JD, Haruko, was it Jaleesa? I think it's 3 or 4 years in a row. We've had people pit one year or social media one year, and then the next year they're like, I am running it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually taking a backseat on this year. I want to go and like cover it instead. Want to enjoy things on that side again. But where was I going with this? But yeah, I really enjoy pit crew, and I think there's a lot of mental. It's all mental, right? In controlling your environment. Like if you don't want to sit down, don't buy a chair. If you don't want this to happen, like just control all the things you can control. That way, when things go wrong, it's only a certain number of things that can go wrong.
Right. So. And I'm getting, like I said, that's the only thing I worry about. And it's a little bit of obsession. Like, should I not drink coffee for like 3 days leading up to it? Like, but I know that's crazy, but it's just like, I'm so afraid of like, cause like, that's like dairy can like make me gassy or just, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to have a big spaghetti dinner the night before, but just those are the things that are like, I don't want to have that take me out. I want to be able to keep going. And I know I have the mental fortitude for it. Oh, look at your kitty. What's your kitty's name?
Timber.
When you hear Josh's cat, do you smile when you hear Josh's cat?
I do. Slightly annoying, but I do love cats. So
what is the first podcast you listen to? It doesn't have to be one of mine. When you get in your car, what are you the most excited to listen to, like on a Monday morning?
That's tricky. So Monday morning is a Pokemon Go podcast that I listen to. I
Amazing.
shit you not.
Amazing.
The game still makes millions and millions and millions of dollars.
It's okay. It's okay.
But and you know me, like back in the day, like I listened to so many podcasts. I still do. I listen to more now. Sometimes I listen at 2 times speed, mostly 1.5 speed.
1.5 is usually good for me.
But for OCR podcasts, it's you guys and the running public. And I'm someone, again, who doesn't train. I just want to hear from Bracken and Kirk. I think they're just awesome. They're well spoken, and I just want to know what it's like on their side of things. And their interviews are really good. But I like Stuff You Should Know. I don't know if I have like one that I'm super like the most excited for, but I just have like 20, 30. I have a lot that I listen to. Always listening to podcasts.
I've gotten so much more on the music side. It used to be 1,000% podcasts. And it was like I didn't figure out that music actually pumped you up until like 2 years ago. And now most of the time I just say, "Hey Siri, play music," and it just starts playing the stuff that I like.
I can't do that. I can't. My biggest thing with running is I can't control my breathing. I can't breathe out of my nose when I run. I don't know why. It's so I'm constantly breathing out of my mouth, which is fine, but like over long races, it dehydrates you, so that's not great. But I can't. I get too excited. I can only go like full speed when I listen to a song. So usually I'll be listening to a podcast for like a half marathon or whatever the race is, and then for the last mile, I'll put on like ska, Streetlight Manifesto, and I'll be like, "Let's go." But if I'm doing like
do you know the Toasters?
I don't know.
The Toasters have a song called Matt Davis Special Agent. Have you ever heard that?
No.
You can play that as your outro. It's pretty good. Yeah,
you gotta cut back on that. Podcasts are cracking down on like real music.
Well, we can talk about that, but quick thing. Yeah, I will not listen to music at the beginning of Ode to Laz. Like I will go way too fast. I'm going to save that for the lonely night laps for sure. So I said this to Josh a couple of times. When you launch a video on YouTube, okay, and it's got a song on it, while it's rendering, it's going to say, "BMI ASCAP, we found this song, you can't monetize it." Like before it even goes out, just in its algorithm, whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Podcasts, which are 100% audio, I have no idea why that wouldn't happen. Why the Libsyn catchers or whatever can't track it. But I've been playing songs for years. What are you hearing?
So I listen to the Libsyn podcast actually, and they always like railing like, make sure you do that. Like they're looking back to old podcasts to see if they can find music and this and that. I'm like, if Matt loses his podcast, he's gonna lose his mind. I can't imagine what I would do if I lost like my whole show.
But what are they going to do? So I have the Beastie Boys intro for years. So what are they going to do to my show? Are they just going to remove that?
I don't know. I heard it could vary like the amount of things that they can do to the show, but like it just makes me nervous when I hear a song on it.
Hey, I'm sure we're going to wrap up in a minute, but can I pause for a bathroom break? I've been holding it for a while.
Yes, no problem.
All right, hang on. Dude, sorry about that. I had to go to the bathroom, and then like everyone was leaving, and everyone was like, "You got to pick me up later," and blah blah blah. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm just like, oh, definitely number 2.
We're still recording?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, it was definitely number 2, but you see how these things go, right?
Yeah, I know.
All right. Well, I don't know if you want to keep this in or not, but I think I got to start practicing because like I don't like going outside. I think I need to start just like practicing going outside and timing it. I guess is that too disgusting?
Yeah, just kind of purposely get your stomach upset and run to see if you can kind of get used to it.
You got it, buddy?
Tolerance.
Yeah, you can leave this on if you want. I don't know. Not everybody's as squeamish as me. I'm super squeamish.
One of the last questions the very last question I had for you is, I know that you rewatched Rise of the Sufferfests, which is a great movie. I got like the free download back in the day. And the biggest thing that you seem to take away from it is the great line, "You can't rely on past deeds." So tell me like what that means to you and what that means going forward.
Dude, well, at the time it became like an inside joke. Like just that. So that guy is amazing, right? That Ed Gamester is just an amazing guy. Speaking of Patreon, I supported his Patreon for a long time. He didn't put anything out, but I still supported him because I liked him. But I eventually stopped, but I just have to quote it. He's like, I had to come back. In this case, he's talking about Tough Guy because 2012 Ed could do it. but could 2013 Ed do it? Could 2014? It just seemed a weird way to talk about yourself in third person. So
Yeah.
I just started saying that to Scott all the time, Scott Keneally and other people. I would just make that joke. And then sure enough, all these years later, it just spoke to me. And so when it was time to do these, the very first obstacle when we did Tough Mudder was Mud Mile. And I literally thought, I can skip it, right? I'm making a video. I can either give someone else the GoPro or just watch somebody. I'm like, it's cold. I don't want to get muddy. Like if I do Savage, they always have this brutal mud crawl in the middle of the race. And I always skip it now because I'm like, I don't want to just get all like, it's going to
What's
take
the
me 20
point?
minutes to wash
Yeah.
over. Right. So that thought went through my head. It's like, well, yeah, Matt, you like 2021 Matt needs to fucking get down in the mud. And then by the end of the race, I was like, 2021 Matt is going to do EST, electroshock therapy, which I hate, which I'm terrified of, which there's no reason to do. And I got to the end and I was trying to convince Rachel to do it with me. And she kept saying she might not. And then we got there and she's like, I'm not doing it. And I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah.
And we can't rely on past deeds, Mike. We gotta wake up every day and, like whether it's being a parent or putting out episodes or whatever it is, like you can't rely on past deeds, Mike, right?
Exactly. And just using that for life, and it works in so many areas of life. But back to running, I do 2 miles every day at least, and whether it's walking or running. And a neighbor came out. He's like, "Oh, I always see you going out there." And I say you're crazy for like no matter the weather, you're always out there. And my wife goes like, "Oh, you used to be the same thing." And then he told me about how he used to be like, he used to run all these events. I'm like, "Oh yeah, like I cover those as media now. We have this cool conversation." And I'm like, it's not too late. You can always go back into it. He's not super old. Even if you just jog the events and stuff, like you can't really rely on past deeds. And eventually there'll be a day where we can't do the things that we do now. But until then, keep doing it. Like I know in my future, I'm going to have like horrible knee surgeries and all that stuff. Like it runs in my family. But until then, I'm going to use my knees as much as I can, and yeah, just you can't rely on past deeds. And I like how that weird quote has such like a big impact later. And I think it's going to continue to grow.
Yeah, and I think I want to give a shout out because a couple people have messaged me that they went back and watched it. Some had not seen it. Some were just hadn't seen it again in a while. I would recommend go watch it again, Mike.
Yeah. I saw it last year, 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Again, it's good. I have it saved to my desktop and I don't watch it that often, but it's so good.